Hey guys again, how are you? God bless. Um, we're gonna start with a little recap, okay? Because I know this is kind of going down some funky road. So let's take a look here. How do I get from man-child in Revelation 12 to the order of Melchizedek? Um, I'm doing that because it gets a little bit more complicated after you look at Melchizedek. There's so much on Melchizedek and who he is and what he is, which really doesn't matter to this study. It's the qualities that he had um, that we find in Hebrews 5, 6, and 7 are which is important. So let's recap here. So the man child in Revelation was to rule with the rod of iron. It's one of the very first clues, and one really the only clues we have of who the identity of the man child is. We know his mother's daughter Zion, and we know what she is. And we get a little bit more of a clue here with the word was, who was to rule. So it's almost like John is seeing a future event, but had something that was supposed to occur beforehand or that could have occurred beforehand. And I see an Adam and Eve signature in that. And guys, there's a lot of stuff in here that's very well, we wouldn't have learned it in church. And I hope and pray, and you're going to see some notes in here that I'm stating facts, that I'm stating the right things, and that, I've been praying a lot about this video and this series because I don't want to be misled. I don't want to mislead anybody. And, so I've been praying a lot over this, and I know the deception is out there, and it's huge. So this is in a lot of ways my opinion, okay, but I do have scripture that backs my opinion. And I think it's up to you, the Holy Spirit, through prayer and everything else, or if he's going to reveal it to you, to see it. Okay. That said, so was to rule. And as I was out running today, I pondered this and I thought about how Adam and Eve, how they chose the tree of knowledge of good and evil over the tree of life. And I'm quite certain that Adam was supposed to rule this world with, of course, God's oversight. However, Satan gets that claim of lordship because we chose sin. So maybe that was to rule goes back to the beginning of, of time, so to speak. Was to rule but chose not to, or fell, or chose the knowledge of good and evil over the tree of life, which we know Jesus Christ, the tree of life. So it's just a thought. Through Isaiah 66, we know that daughter Zion brought forth her children. Okay, so the man-child could definitely be more than one individual, although I do think there is a complete structure with assignments and rank and positions and authorities and everything else that comes with a kingdom. Okay, remember, it's building a kingdom, and there are positions in kingdoms. I mean, one thing Satan has done to this world is he's made it as though that we're all the same, that it doesn't matter. I mean, even promotion in corporate America, I mean, it's almost a joke, because the guy that's the least qualified gets promoted half the time. You have this team that works hard all year, and they go to a championship of some sort, and everyone gets a trophy from the losers on all the way up, and recognition and everything else. I'm saying they shouldn't be recognized. I'm saying that it's an everybody wins type of mentality, or everybody's the same type of mentality. And I think this goes totally against what God shows us as, yeah, we're all sinners, we're all that same thing, but there is a position, there are positions, and there are, you look at his throne, and I mean, it tells us this, it's laid out this way. Everybody's got a position, everyone has a job, and the Levites were the priests, the Benjamites were the warriors, all these things come into play. Adam and Aaron were in charge. I mean, it just, it completely goes against the kingdom mentality. Okay. And if you read the book of Enoch, I mean, God tests obedience with his angels. He tells them to bow down and worship Enoch and to test their loyalty. So, there's, you know, that's a whole nother can of worms, because I know a lot of people are indoctrinated into everybody's a winner, everybody's the same, and that's not the case. Um, and this thought is confirmed in Revelation 2:24, as Jesus himself states, "He that overcomes will rule and have power over nations with a rod of iron. He will also receive the morning star," which we discussed. This takes us to Psalms 110, where David states that this rod out of Zion will rule in the midst of his enemies, which Jesus never tells us he's going to come back and rule in the midst of his enemies. Okay, so there's something about this here that should tell us that this isn't Jesus, okay, necessarily. And also states he is of the order of Melchizedek. And that's what we're going to look at. God gives us a clue, and then we follow the thread, okay? I think we'll find out much more about the man-child in the kingdom if we look in the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek, the person, we do not know much about him. There's no reference to his family, father, mother. He simply existed as a king. And the Bible states very little about him. In fact, he's discussed more in the New Testament after he's long gone than in the Old Testament. And in the Old Testament, it goes all the way back to Abraham. Okay, his name means literally King of Righteousness, King of Peace. Peace being Salem, which was the place where he was a ruler, okay? Which is surprisingly very Jesus-like. You'll find more similarities with this than just this one. If you look at Strong's number, it's 4442, right here, 4442. A lot of us keep seeing 444. Could this mean that you're part of this order of Melchizedek? I don't know, but something to think about. I was seeing it all the time. I woke up at exactly 444 several times, and I just kept begging the Lord, show me, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? He said, Google it. And I kind of laughed. I was like, okay. So I went and Googled it, and this came up. The very first thing, Last Day on Earth, 444, is a movie. That's William Dafoe. So just getting back to his name, just his name, okay, means King of Righteousness. He was the king of Salem. You can find him in Genesis chapter 14. Salem means peace, so literally he was the king of peace. All right, King of Righteousness, King of Peace. Here's the verse right here. He brought forth bread and wine to Abraham, and he blessed Abraham. Usually the greater blesses the lesser or the younger. And we both know, or we all know, how Abraham was, great, in the sense of he was chosen by God. God said, look at the stars. This is your family. All these things we all know. Who is this guy? We don't know nothing about him, but he just comes bopping along after, the destruction of some cities and offers, bread and wine. And he was a priest of the Most High God. And that's the first place we see him. How is he a priest? Up to this point, we have Adam, Noah, and Enoch, and their families, essentially, were all followers of God. But who is this guy? Like I stated, he blesses Abraham. Abraham pays homage to him, gives him gifts, gives him some of his spoil. Okay, it goes on to tell us. Did not God tell Abraham that he would father all his people? So who is this guy? Was not Aaron the precursor of all priests? And he was still a sinner, like all of us. So who is Melchizedek? If you go to Hebrews, it even says he was without a father, without a mother, without descent, without people, neither having a beginning of days nor end of life. Here's the 10th part right there, where it says he gave it to Abraham. So consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave him a tenth of his spoils. And we know that Jesus says, why do you call me good? There's none good but one, and he's in heaven. Okay? So who is this guy that's called great by the Hebrewic author, whether it's Paul or whoever? With this route, what I'm trying to say was Jesus Melchizedek. It really doesn't matter, to be honest, in this study, but it is a great study if you want to look at, some very interesting things. I don't believe Melchizedek is the man-child, but I do think Melchizedek could have qualities and a kingdom that will be rebirthed. And I think this could be the man-child. So essentially what I'm saying is, if you look at Hebrews 5, 6, and 7, there are certain qualities listed in that text that describe Melchizedek. And those qualities, I think, are concurrent with the man-child or the follow-on kingdom. So let's take a look. Okay. Who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, meaning they aren't following God, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity? So in other words, how can you know they're suffering if you haven't experienced suffering or ignorance or being lost or being a sinner? Okay? How can you have that sort of relationship and have compassion on them when you know nothing about it? Okay, I thought this was interesting. Thou art my son today, and I have begotten thee. And then he goes on to say, thou art a priest after the order of Melchizedek. This is Hebrews 5:5. Remember in Psalms 2? He says the same exact thing. The Lord, how I have begotten thee. Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee. And then it goes on to say about Melchizedek in Psalms 110. So you have the thread here in 5:5 and 5:6 going directly back to Psalms 2 and Psalms 110. The same verbiage. Begotten means to bear, to be born, to bring forth, conceive, gather, gender, make, spring forward. Has a lot to do with what the man-child sounds like, does it not? Some more on Melchizedek, who in the days of his flesh, which I found very interesting. Why would it say in the days of his flesh? That's a statement that doesn't even need to be in there had he been anything else. Okay? So did he come here in the flesh? We don't know what all God has done. Okay? This is a very, very touchy thing, I guess. Kind of one of those things you just kind of have faith and see the text for what it is. Why would it just say, who had offered up his prayers and supplications with crying and tears? Why does it have to add this in here? Why would flesh be added? Okay? But anyway, let's look at it. When he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears. Have we prayed for those that we loved? Have we done it to the point of tears and crying? Who was able to save him from death and was heard and that he feared. In other words, he was crying for the people he loved, to the one that can save them from death. He learned obedience by the things in which he suffered. Have we suffered to learn obedience? Absolutely, I would say. Absolutely. Great suffering. Okay? I think we've endured a lot of things as the bride of Christ. And it goes back to being obedient. Oh, it's so difficult at times. Trust me, I know. And being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation. Called upon God, high priest after the order of Melchizedek. So something's going on with Melchizedek. I don't know, okay? But the qualities there, apart being the order of Makes sense. Just another verse. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, but strong meat belongeth to them that are full of age. This reminds me of kind of wisdom in the unlearned. Even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised both to discern both good and evil. There are those that are still on the milk, and they are unskillful. They have got to get off the milk. Okay. Now we're going to dive into something that some people might not agree with. And that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I don't know everything. This study came to me. I didn't really pursue it. Okay. However, it seems like I see something, I keep going. Just, you saw all the threads. Somehow I got to this verse in Malachi 4:2-6. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go forth and grow up as calves in the stall, and you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. Who is the Son of Righteousness he's talking about that will arise? Is it Jesus? Or somebody else? What's going on here? Let's take a look. The word son. Okay? The word sun. Brilliant sun, east ray, battlement east side, sun rising westward. From 1053. 1053. Sun, Beth Shemesh, a place in Palestine. Okay? It's mentioned in Joshua as the city or territory of the tribe of Judah on the border between their territory and the tribe of Dan. Was it disputed territory? I don't know. I thought this was kind of interesting, so I put it in there. It's between territories, between assignments, between boundaries. Okay? House of the sun. You go back to it, all right, and there's other threads. Okay, it says look at 1004 and 8121. Here's 1004. House, variation, implications, daughter, court, dungeon, family, homegrown, homeborn, steward. 8121 goes back to the, I think this is 8121 up here. Yeah, my fault. Sorry, I've listed it twice. We go back to 1129, to begin, to build, to make children, to obtain children, to make, to repair. What are we seeing here? This word right here is 4832, which is healing, medicine, cure, deliverance, remedy, sound, wholesome, yielding. Okay. So we have the Son of Righteousness arise with the healing in his wings. We talked about the Son. We talked about healing. You look at the verse and you think automatically, this is the Father talking about Jesus through Malachi. And he does. But how does Jesus operate? Through people? In the previous video, I mentioned that Jesus would not rule in the midst of his enemies. So how could Psalms 110 be talking about Jesus? Where he would rule in the midst of his enemies. Lord knows I'm not trying to take anything away at all from Jesus. Without him, nothing is possible. And if I'm wrong on this topic, then forgive me, Lord, for all glory, power, and authority and honor go to Jesus Christ. I just want to make that clear before I go any further. I do think that this verse may be speaking of an angel, and I have a feeling it could be the man-child. It could have a dual meaning as well. We know that the Bible's full of dual meanings in verses. The prophet could have spoken of the spiritual healing needed by all of us, provided by Lord Jesus Christ, but does it have a prophetic meaning of the not so distant future? If we look at son and substitute the definitions given, it could mean family, children, brilliant children or family, sons of God. If we go to Revelation 1, John sees Jesus in a glorified state and describes him from his head to his feet. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. John does not describe Jesus with any wings in the description of him. On the flip side, though, we do know that God the Father will cover us with his feathers, and this is our protection. I have described this covering extensively in previous videos called mantling. Now we know Jesus is coming here after the end of all things to rule and reign for 1,000 years. Aside from this, he is coming here to fight, all right, in the battle of Armageddon. Is he coming here to destroy the wicked? I challenge you and ask you to help me if I'm seeing this wrong. I think he's going to do this through his servants who have Christ in them. Remember Galatians 4. Until Christ be formed in you, I am in travail. I am in travail until Christ be formed in you. This goes back to that corporate Jesus I talked about earlier. The only instances I can think of Jesus coming here directly to earth would be the rapture, which is going to be caught up in the air, the 1,000-year reign, the battle of Armageddon. Now, 3 days of darkness, there are a lot of prophecies on the 3 days of darkness. I did a study on this as well. The 3 days of darkness, a lot of the prophecies state that Jesus will appear to each person and explain their spiritual status. He will explain their spiritual status to them directly, and they will have to make a decision. Could be. Okay? 3 days of darkness, I think, is extremely biblical. I think it's extremely accurate. His appearing at that time could definitely happen to people. Dreams and visions, I still think, will happen as the tribulation does go through. Am I wrong with this? Is there anything I can add to this? I cannot think of really anything offhand in another time of his return. Maybe part of this mystery is we're not looking at the Christ in us, his kingdom, in which he will inhabit our temples, our homes, our tents, our dwellings. We chose the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the fallen angel was set over us. And it's no surprise that Satan has been the driving force behind the kingdoms in Babylon, all right, which is, not Babylon, the country, city, but it's the world system involving all aspects of humanity, education, medical, military, governments. It's all Babylon, okay? Could it be that when he is cast down in Revelation 12 and the man-child ascends, that the Lord will use the corporate Jesus and the changing of positions? Dan is out and the Josephs are in. Satan is out. And could it be that Archangel Raphael is used to heal the nations? Yes, it will be a process and not an overnight one, but it will be a time of healing as well as judgment. I see it as a switch, but it's a switch over time nonetheless. If we look at the Archangel Raphael, not much is known about him, okay? He's found in the book of Tobit and also some other extra biblical text here and there, okay? Raphael means it is God who heals. God heals. God, please heal. All manners of healing. Because of the healing role that is assigned to Raphael. Okay? I'm just kind of putting some of this up here. I'm sorry guys, I had an interruption, but yeah, so this is the name of this angel. I mean, it means to heal, literally. El heals, God heals. Now, I didn't put a lot on here about him, but I mean, I do think that this could be the case. Okay. Um, but you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with the healing in his wings. So, is this man child, is it going to be a kingdom of healing? A kingdom of, Jesus Christ told the disciples, you'll do greater miracles than these. Raising the dead, healing the sick, helping the lost. I mean, all those things. Now, I do have questions, guys. I have a ton of questions. And one of them is, how does this connect to the 144? So if you want to say a prayer on that to help me with that, that'd be great. Because I see the 144 as a separate group. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. But anyway, this concludes this video, guys. And I'm just going to throw this up here just to refresh us. This is the original model. Of course, this is Raphael, who obviously I have coming up in replacing. And of course, Satan will go down to the earth. And one will ascend, one will descend. But anyway, guys, I would appreciate comments, concerns, whether you think I'm right or wrong. I don't care. I'd love to discuss it. But God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Going home soon. Take care. God bless.